The night was terrifyingly dark. At 2 in the morning, Claire Sterling sat motionless on the sofa, staring blankly at a medical report. As a translator of classical poetry, she had been diagnosed with terminal brain atrophy. Claire's slender fingers slowly traced her wedding ring. In the face of death, her primary concern wasn't her own life, but the marriage she had desperately struggled to maintain for 3 years. She imagined that if she told Ethan Rivers about her condition, the man who pretended to be a devoted husband, while clearly not loving her, would probably lose his mind. After all, her illness would completely disrupt the timeline of their pre-arranged divorce. A click sounded as the front door was opened from the outside. Claire quickly stuffed the medical report into her pocket and walked forward with a forced smile. "Why are you back so late? Was it a busy day at the office?" Ethan brushed past her without a glance. "There's no one else here, Claire. You don't need to perform." Claire's smile froze. She let out an almost imperceptible sigh and turned around. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan's hand slowed as he loosened his tie, his expression showing blatant impatience. "Make it quick." Accustomed to his coldness, she gathered her courage. "If I were to fall seriously ill, would you still go through with the divorce?" Ethan narrowed his eyes, his voice dripping with mockery. "Are you getting too lost in your own drama, or do you think I've suddenly become soft? Claire, don't try to use those pathetic Sterling family tricks on me." He ignored her deathly pale face and headed straight for the second floor. He paused for a moment, looking back. "The agreement expires next month. I suggest you stay in your place until then." In the living room, Claire watched his silhouette disappear, leaning against the table in exhaustion. Her marriage had been an accident from the start. The Rivers family needed a daughter-in-law to keep their son in check, and the Sterling family needed to sell a daughter to maintain their crumbling wealth. It was nothing more than a transaction. Her eyes fell on a poem she had been translating on the table. The final lines pierced her heart. Poem. "To say my longing is futile is true, yet I would rather remain mad in my sorrow." Translation: "I know there is no future for us, but I love you still." Closing her stinging eyes, she knew her time was running out. She would agree to the divorce. She didn't want the man she loved to see her at her most pathetic as the disease took hold. But before she left, she had to be brave just once. Resolved, she clenched her fists and walked up to the second floor, pushing open the door to the most forbidden room in the house. Inside was a black and white memorial portrait. The girl in the photo had a radiant smile and eyes full of light. Beneath the portrait was an incense burner. With 3 glowing sticks, Ethan had clearly just been here to pay his respects. In the dim light, Claire felt an indescribable bitterness. Ethan reacted instantly. He lunged forward, shoving her out of the room and slamming the door. His eyes were cold as ice. "Who gave you permission to enter this room?" Claire's knuckles turned white as she gripped her hem. Her voice trembled. "So, is she the reason you haven't touched me once in 3 years?" Ethan's gaze was lethal. "If you ever dare step foot in this room again, I won't hesitate to bury the entire Sterling family along with you." He turned to leave, but Claire grabbed his arm, her eyes bloodshot with unshed tears. "It's her, isn't it? The one they whisper about, the late Serafina Donnelly, the girl you loved more than life itself." The answer Claire sought was lost in the sound of a slamming door. She glanced at the maid's quarters on the first floor, knowing the help had been eavesdropping. Every drop of color drained from her face. Back in her own room, her phone rang urgently. It was Ethan's mother, Rosemary Blackwood Rivers, a woman of iron and shadows. Exhaling sharply, Claire answered. "Yes, Mother. Come over tomorrow. Since you can't hold on to Ethan's heart, we have to resort to other methods." Claire's breath hitched. "Mother, I want to handle things between Ethan and me myself. You shouldn't listen to the rumors the staff spreads." "Claire, the Rivers doors are not easy to stay within. My people are not for you to criticize." The line went dead. That night, Claire lay in the dark as her head throbbed and her heart ached. She picked up her pen, trying to numb herself with work. She saw a couplet she had translated and smiled bitterly. Poem. "The falling flower has feelings for the flowing water, but the water flows on without a backward glance." Translation: "Unrequited love is, in the end, a solitary journey." The next day was overcast, matching Claire's mood. At the Rivers estate, Rosemary was waiting. She threw a document at Claire's feet. Claire's pupils shrunk as she read it. "What is the meaning of this?" Rosemary curled her lip. Can you only read poetry now? I'm giving you two choices. Either get pregnant with my son's child, or we find a surrogate seed to ensure a river's heir. Your choice." The silence in the grand living room was deafening. Claire's mouth hung open, unable to find words. Rosemary continued impatiently. "The Sterlings sold you to me saying you were obedient and matched Ethan's taste. I paid a fortune for you, and what do I get? You can't even hold your husband, and you can't even produce a child." Claire felt as if a knife were twisting in her chest. "I will sign the divorce papers, but I will never betray my marriage. If you want that kind of woman, find her elsewhere. And I wasn't sold. My parents love me." She turned and stumbled away. Rosemary's voice trailed after her. "This document was drafted by your own family. Claire, that's how much they love you." Claire sat in her car, the wind howling outside. She drove to the Sterling house, her body shaking uncontrollably. Finding the front door unlocked, she walked in to find her parents, Harold and Martha, and her brother, Clarence. They didn't notice her. Clarence was saying, "Ethan is moving abroad in 2 months. Rosemary will lose it. Claire has to get pregnant now. If not, we have to." He made a throat-slitting gesture. Martha gasped. "Are you mad? How would we explain that to the Rivers family?" Clarence sneered. "A wife drowning accidentally. Ethan wouldn't be able to leave the country so easily then, would he?" A bolt of lightning flashed outside. Claire felt a bone-chilling desolation. A torrential downpour followed. Claire stood before the villa she shared with Ethan, rain and tears blurring her vision. She waited until his headlights cut through the gloom. Ethan stepped out under an umbrella. Claire stood there, her voice raspy. "Are you moving abroad next month?" Ethan didn't look up. "So you've been investigating me. Impressive." Claire's eyes were filled with sorrow. "If I had known the rumors were true, I never would have married you, no matter how much I loved you." Ethan lifted the umbrella, revealing his cold eyes. "Love, what a ridiculous joke. Miss Sterling, I suggest you be honest with yourself." He walked past her into the house without a second glance. Claire lost her strength. She couldn't love him anymore. Claire fell ill for 3 days. She refused visitors and began packing her things. This villa was never her home. While packing her books, a small card fell out. It was a note she had written years ago when she first fell for him. Poem. How can one find a way to satisfy both the divine and the beloved? Translation. To love you, yet never possess you. She set the card on fire. As the sparks died, so did her hope. She called Ethan. "Let's divorce tomorrow morning at the courthouse." Ethan frowned over the line. "The agreement isn't up. If you want more money or assets, talk to my assistant." He hung up. Ethan tossed his phone aside and looked at a photo of Serafina on his desk. "If only you were alive, my mother wouldn't be doing this, and I wouldn't be so miserable." His assistant, D. Archer, entered. "Boss, are you looking at Serafina's photo again? Let it go." Ethan looked up. "D, Claire wants a divorce." D raised an eyebrow. "Weren't you going to do that anyway? You're leaving in 2 months." Ethan leaned back. "She wants it tomorrow. She probably wants a bigger settlement, but it makes me angry. I want to break things." D sighed. "As a friend, Ethan, it's been 3 years. It's time to move on." Ethan's gaze sharpened. "You told her I was moving, didn't you?" D set down her files. "I didn't, but I see the truth. When you think of Serafina, you feel pity. When you look at Claire, you feel rage, petulance, and confusion." "What are you saying?" D took a deep breath. "I'm saying you treated Serafina like a sister you had to protect, but you treat Claire like a lover you're fighting with." Ethan went silent. "Get out." As Claire packed her books, she heard voices downstairs. She hurried down to find Rosemary, standing in the living room. "I brought someone for you," Rosemary said, gesturing to a shy young man. "He's Ethan's cousin, Cillian. He has River's DNA. Choose." Claire looked at the boy, then thought of her own parents' betrayal. She laughed. "You were a daughter once. You are a mother now. How can you do something so filthy?" Rosemary turned red. "I am doing this for my son, Claire. I gave you 3 years my son is leaving, and I have no reason to make him stay. Do you know the pain of a mother being separated from her child?" Claire saw the raw hatred in Rosemary's eyes. It was the same look her brother had given when he talked about her death. "I understand your pain, but I have morals. I am divorcing Ethan tomorrow." She turned to go upstairs, but Rosemary shouted to her bodyguards. "Bind her now." Claire was grabbed, her mouth stuffed with a towel by the maid, and forced into a car. She saw the struggle in Rosemary's eyes and the fear in Cillian's. As the world went dark, she couldn't understand how her mother-in-law could sink so low. Meanwhile, at the university, Caleb Brooks looked at Claire's empty desk. He touched her open notebook. Poem. The sound of laughter fades away, the passionate heart is troubled by the heartless. Translation. The deeper the love, the greater the pain. Caleb took a pen and wrote something on the page with a self-deprecating smile. Just then, a colleague called him to the dean's office. After he left, Ivy Evans sneaked over. She saw what he wrote. The mountains have trees, the trees have branches. My heart delights in you, but you do not know. Ivy sneered. A married woman like Claire Sterling dared to seduce Caleb Brooks, the secret heir to the Brooks fortune? She snapped a photo of the note. In a suburban villa, Claire was tied to a bed. She looked at Cillian, who stood there nervously. She laughed through her tears. You realize you'll go to prison for this? Cillian unbuckled his belt and covered her mouth. I'm sorry, he whispered. Claire's world shattered. In the room, Claire wept silently as Cillian shook the bed intentionally to create noise for the guards outside. My name is Cillian, he whispered. My name means mistake. I'm sorry, Claire. I can't disobey my aunt, but Ethan is a good man. He has no idea about this. Claire looked at him with hollow eyes. Ethan, what is good about him? Cillian thought for a moment. He helped me when no one else would. When my aunt asked for a volunteer, I stepped up because I knew his wife would be a good person like him. I wanted to help him, and you are as beautiful as he described. Claire smiled bitterly. His eyes are beautiful, yes, but there is no wind, no moon, no stars, and certainly no room for me in them. Cillian's heart skipped a beat at her tragic smile. Aunt Rosemary used to be kind, but after Ethan's accident 3 years ago, she changed. Please try to understand. Do you know Seraphina Donnelly? Claire asked coldly. Cillian stiffened. That name was a taboo in the Rivers family. She was a lovely girl, but she loved the wrong person and ended her own life. The night passed. Claire's tears ran dry. Rosemary entered the room the next morning. Seeing the messy sheets and Claire's red eyes, she nodded with satisfaction. Cillian, you can leave. Rosemary unbuttoned Claire's restraints. 1 month. Just get pregnant this month, and we'll all be free. Claire shoved her away. You're supposed to be my mother-in-law, how could you do this? Rosemary looked away. Your mother gave me your cycle records. Come back next week when you're ovulating. Cillian will be waiting. Claire's face went white. My mother knew. She knew about this. Don't blame your mother, Rosemary said as she walked out. People who are used to luxury can't handle being poor. Claire returned to the villa in a daze. When she saw Ethan sitting in the living room, her dry eyes finally filled with tears. Before she could speak, Ethan threw their marriage certificates at her feet. Weren't we supposed to meet at the courthouse? Claire, you can't play the divorce card to threaten me. Claire knelt to pick up the red booklets. The pain was suffocating. This was the man she had loved for 3 years. He didn't care about her pain, only her perceived failures. Ethan, she said softly, we're done. Ethan felt a sharp, tiny pang in his chest. He suppressed it with a sneer. Did we ever even start? That was the final straw. Claire hurled the certificates at his face. You're right, we never started, it was all me. A moth to a flame, that's why your mother kidnapped me yesterday and tried to force your cousin on me. She wanted a river seed. So you wouldn't leave, are you satisfied now? Ethan froze. He noticed her disheveled state. He tried to hide his panic. You chose this path. Why act the victim now? Claire stopped crying. She didn't say another word. Ethan, feeling claustrophobic, headed upstairs. As he passed her, he heard her whisper, a life half spent in storms and wounds, a heart half chilled by parting's gloom. He paused. Pick a time for the courthouse. This is the last time. The next morning, Ethan was still in the living room when Claire prepared for work. I fired the maid, he said without looking up from his paper. There's a check on the table. Fill in whatever amount you want. Claire stopped. What is this? My mother went too far. I'm apologizing on behalf of the family. Take the money. Let's just get the divorce over with. It's better for you. Claire clenched her fists. Hush money. Ethan threw the paper aside. Do you want to make a scandal? The Rivers family is too powerful for you to move. Claire walked to the table, wrote the number 1 on the check, tore it off, and walked out. Once in her car, she collapsed. Ethan felt a strange agitation. His phone rang. Block all the news, he barked. The Rivers family cannot lose face. Then he saw a notification from a gossip blog. He walked out to Claire's car and tapped on the window. He tossed his phone into her lap. "No wonder you wanted a divorce so badly. You've already hooked Caleb Brooks." Claire drove to the university in a blur. When she entered the office, the air was cold. "Is Director Brooks here?" she asked. Ivy Evans stepped forward. "Miss Sterling, haven't you seen the news? The university has suspended you. You should go home and wait for the investigation instead of bothering Director Brooks." Claire turned pale. "It's not true. I have nothing to do with him. I'm a married woman." "Exactly, that's why this is a scandal. As a translator, you should have some moral fiber." Suddenly, Ivy's phone rang. Her expression soured. She marched over and slapped Claire hard across the face. "Do you know what you've done? Caleb Brooks resigned because of you." Claire stumbled back. She tried to go to the dean's office, but a swarm of reporters blocked her way. "Is it true you're the wife of Ethan Rivers? Why are you seeing the heir to the Brooks fortune? Are you playing a high-stakes game between billionaires? Is it true you were a bargain bride, sold to Ethan to wake him from a coma? Are you cheating because you couldn't win his heart?" Claire backed away, terrified. Suddenly, a hand steadied her. Caleb Brooks appeared, his bodyguards pushing back the press. "Show some respect," Caleb's voice boomed. "I have loved Claire Sterling from afar for years. She knew nothing of it. We are innocent of any wrongdoing." The crowd gasped. Caleb added, "I have resigned and am returning to the Brooks Group. If any media outlet prints lies today, you will answer to the Brooks family." "I didn't know you were so devoted, Mr. Brooks," a cold voice interrupted. Ethan arrived with his legal team. He walked up to Claire, looked at Caleb, and smirked. "Don't worry, Mr. Brooks. Even if something did happen, it doesn't matter. We're getting divorced anyway." Claire felt like a stranger in her own life. Ethan drove her, not home, but to the Sterling residence. "Because you don't love me, you don't even care if I cheat, do you?" she asked. Ethan remained silent, his coldness a physical weight. "I don't love you anymore, Ethan." She checked her phone, a message from Caleb. "I hope one day you will take my name as your own. I will wait for you." She deleted it. At her parents' door, she hesitated, remembering Clarence's gesture. She rang the bell. Clarence opened the door and immediately slapped her. Her nose began to bleed. "Why?" she sobbed. Clarence grabbed her hair and slammed her against the wall. "You dare ask why? Do you know what you've done? The Rivers family is cutting us off because of your scandal." She looked at her parents on the sofa. They watched with icy indifference. She shoved Clarence away, blood smeared on her face. "I am your daughter, how can you do this?" Clarence laughed. "You're just a pawn for an alliance. Know your place." He picked up a file from the table and threw it at her. "As a trade, here is Serafina Donnelly's full file. Consider it a parting gift from your brother." "Trade for what?" "Your life." Clarence wiped the blood from her face with a napkin, his voice chillingly tender. "Don't blame us. The Sterling legacy can't die. A small sacrifice for the family. Be a good girl." Claire was forced back into a car headed to the villa. She felt like the walking dead. When she walked inside, she met Ethan's gaze. He looked at the blood on her shirt and frowned. "What happened to you?" Claire gripped the file. Ethan grabbed it from her. "Who gave you permission to investigate Serafina? Can't you leave a dead girl in peace? How many more games are you going to play?" Claire closed her eyes. "Let's divorce, right now." Ethan assumed it was another empty threat and walked away. Claire looked at the file. Serafina was beautiful, with a smile like the one in the memorial portrait. She realized she was jealous of a ghost. Serafina had died for love, and now Claire was being killed for it too literally. That night, Ethan found Claire in the forbidden memorial room. "I told you to stay out of here," he barked, grabbing her arm. Claire looked at him with a defiance he'd never seen. "Then bury the Sterlings. Do it, I dare you." Ethan shoved her away in frustration. Claire, weak from days of stress, hit the wall hard. Blood began to drip from her nose again. She didn't bother to wipe it. "I am crazy," she laughed hysterically. "My whole family is crazy. As soon as we divorce, you'll hear that I drowned. The rumors of you being a wife killer will keep you from ever leaving this country. You want to move abroad." "Forget it," Ethan looked at the frail, bleeding woman. "Stay at the Rivers estate. You'll just be used." "Claire, stop the theatrics. I don't love you and I hate being threatened with lives." Claire's laughter died. "Then why did you marry me? Why didn't you tell me the secret of this room? Why did you make a 3-year agreement that gave me hope? You pulled me into an abyss and then asked why I was acting I spent 3 years on you if I didn't love you. Why would I endure your mother's abuse? She pointed at the photo. I'm not her I want to live but my family. They traded Serafina's secrets for my life. Do you believe that? Ethan's eyes flickered. Go to sleep. We're going to the courthouse in the morning. The next day, they stood before the clerk. Claire signed the papers and whispered, I heard you have another in your heart, so I have come to say goodbye. Ethan frowned but said nothing. They walked out of the courthouse, divorce certificates in hand. Ethan felt a strange emptiness. Don't bother with the fake death act, he said coldly. I won't touch the Sterlings. Claire was about to retort when a man in a hoodie bumped into her. A sharp pain sliced through her throat. Blood sprayed Ethan's face. Claire collapsed. As darkness took her, Claire saw Ethan's face twisted in horror. She had lost the bet. Murder, someone's been murdered, people screamed. Ethan knelt, pressing his hands against Claire's neck to stem the flow. He was shaking. Ambulance, get an ambulance, Claire tried to speak, but only a gurgling sound came out. She tried to reach up to cover Ethan's eyes, but her hand fell limp. A figure rushed over, pushing Ethan aside and lifting Claire. It was Caleb Brooks. To the hospital now, Ethan stood frozen, his shirt soaked in Claire's blood. Dee Archer arrived and gasped, Ethan, are you hurt? Ethan shoved her aside and ran after Caleb's car. At the hospital, Claire was rushed into surgery. Caleb punched Ethan the moment he saw him. If anything happens to her, I will kill you, Ethan snarled back. Stay away from my wife, Caleb mocked. You just signed the divorce papers. Dee's phone rang. She looked at Ethan, her face pale. Ethan, they caught the attacker. It was Clarence Sterling, her own brother. Ethan sat outside the ICU all night. Claire was still in critical condition. Caleb had been called away by a crisis at the Brooks Group. Dee walked up to Ethan with a change of clothes. I'm back. I talked to the police. Ethan clutched his chest. It hurts here, Dee. A pain I can't stop. Dee knelt beside him. You look like a man who's finally realized what he lost. But I don't love her, Ethan whispered. I love Serafina, right? Do you? Dee asked. Ethan couldn't answer. He looked at the blood on his hands. What did Clarence say? Dee sighed. The Sterlings are monsters. When they saw her post about the divorce, they thought their meal ticket was gone. They decided she was worth more as a tragic dead wife to keep you tied to them. Ethan's shoulders shook with silent sobs. He finally understood everything Claire had tried to tell him. I want him dead. Ethan, the law will handle it, Dee warned. No, Ethan said, his voice like ice. He tried to kill her. I won't let him live, and my mother. She played a part in this too. He opened his phone and went to Claire's WhatsApp. He had blocked her for years. He unblocked her and saw her status from that morning. Whatever the ending, I'm glad I met you. Ethan felt a chill down the hallway. Dee, I'm a monster, aren't I? We all make mistakes, Ethan, she said softly. Ethan gripped his chest. This is worse than when Serafina died. It's a different kind of pain. Help me, Caleb Brooks returned, his clothes still stained with Claire's blood. He saw Ethan and felt a wave of disgust. He threw a recording pen at Ethan's back. Listen to this. Ethan picked it up, trembling. Caleb said, I loved her for 3.5 years. I was one step too late and she became your bride. I asked her once if she loved her husband. She said, yes, because I see light in his eyes. Light? What a joke. Ethan's heart felt like it was being shredded. Caleb continued, I investigated. I heard the seed-borrowing joke. I heard your mother, Rosemary, say, is she dead yet? If she's dead, my son can't move abroad. Your family is sick, Ethan. Listen to the recording. Ethan pressed play. It was Claire's mother, Martha. We sold her to the Rivers, we raised her. She owes us, she was a mistake anyway. I tried to abort her 3 times. I hate her. Rosemary Blackwood knew everything. She bought Claire because she knew Claire was desperate enough to do anything. Ethan collapsed against the wall. He had known he was cruel, but he never realized the hell Claire was living in while he was ignoring her. Caleb leaned in. The Sterlings are finished, but you, Ethan, you're even worse than them. Ethan stood in the silence of the hospital, the recording echoing in his mind. He looked at Caleb. I will give Claire justice. I will answer for my sins. Caleb clapped mockingly. Good, then get out. You've done enough. I'm not leaving. The longer you stay here, the more Rosemary will panic, Caleb said. She's terrified of Clarence talking. Do you think she won't try to finish what he started? Ethan's neck stiffened. He turned to leave. Protect her until I get back. In the car, Dee asked, What are you going to do, Ethan? Ethan looked out the window. Caleb Brooks reminds me of who I used to be, and I've become the person I used to hate most. At the Rivers mansion, Ethan confronted his parents. His father sat in silence, having spent his life ignoring his wife's madness. "Why?" Ethan asked Rosemary. "Tell me why." Rosemary trembled. "I didn't hate her, Ethan. I just wanted you to stay when you moved abroad after the accident. I just wanted a reason for you to come home." "Did you kidnap her?" Ethan asked. "Did you try to force Cillian on her?" Rosemary fell to her knees, sobbing. Ethan's father looked at her in horror. "Rosemary, is this true? You kidnapped our daughter-in-law?" Ethan looked at his mother with pure loathing. "Find Cillian. Call the police." Rosemary screamed. "You'd send your own mother to prison?" "A debt is a debt," Ethan said. "You will pay." Cillian was brought in, bruised and terrified from his father's beating. He knelt before Ethan. "Did you touch her?" Ethan asked. "No," Cillian cried. "I protected her. I pretended to make noise so the guards would think I was doing it, but I never touched her." "I love you like a brother, Ethan. I couldn't do that to your wife. Ask her. She'll tell you." Ethan exhaled, a small weight lifting. "Tell me exactly what she said." Cillian recounted Claire's words. "His eyes are beautiful, but there is no room for me in them." Ethan leaned against the wall, unable to breathe. He told Cillian's parents to take him abroad and never let him return to Claire's sight. Then he turned to his parents. Rosemary was begging for forgiveness. Ethan threw the divorce certificates on the table. "She was slashed at the courthouse today because of your schemes. Are you happy now?" Rosemary went numb. "Father, take her abroad," Ethan commanded. "I am stripping you of your assets and your positions. You are exiled. If I ever forgive you, I'll call. If not, I'll personally see you in a cell." That night, the Rivers group announced a massive leadership change. Ethan took total control. Dee asked, "Boss, what about the Sterling family?" "Total destruction," Ethan said. "And Claire?" Ethan paused. "I'll be at the hospital from now on." "What do you feel for her, Ethan? If Serafina were alive and Claire woke up, who would you choose?" Ethan thought about it. The idea of intimacy with Serafina felt wrong, almost like a betrayal of a sisterly bond. But when he imagined Claire, he wanted to see her smile. He wanted to see a child with her eyes. He realized he had been an idiot. He hurried to the hospital, reading classical poetry on the way. The translations broke his heart. He realized Serafina was his past, but Claire was his soul. He reached the ICU. Nurses were rushing in with bloody bandages. Ethan's heart stopped. Caleb stood across the hall, eyes red with fury. The doctor shouted, "One more try. If she doesn't respond in 10 minutes, call it." Ethan felt like he was dying. The 10 minutes felt like an eternity. Finally, the tension broke. Claire was stable. The doctor pulled Ethan and Caleb into his office. "She survived, but her will to live is incredibly weak, and there's something else." He pushed a file across the desk. "She has terminal brain atrophy." Ethan and Caleb froze. "She's a literary translator," Caleb whispered. "This will kill her career before it kills her." Ethan only asked, "Will it hurt? Will she suffer?" The doctor sighed. "It's a degenerative process. Memory loss, personality changes, and eventually total loss of bodily functions. It's a cruel disease." Caleb backed away. He thought of his family's reputation, his career, his future. Could he handle a wife who didn't recognize him? Ethan nodded. "Don't tell her yet. I will take responsibility for everything." Ethan looked at Caleb. "Caleb, go home. The Brooks family won't accept her like this. Could you really take care of her for the rest of her life, day in and day out? Be honest." Caleb was silent. Ethan continued, "You knew her family was dangerous, yet you didn't protect her at the courthouse. You wanted her to be hurt so she'd turn to you, didn't you?" Caleb stumbled back. His expression gave him away. "You like the idea of her," Ethan said, "but I love her. Leave." Caleb left, leaving Ethan alone with his regret. 3 days later, the Sterling family was bankrupt. Harold and Martha were being hounded by creditors. Clarence was in a cell, being disciplined by Ethan's people. Claire woke up, but she couldn't speak because of the throat injury. She communicated with her eyes and a phone. Every time Ethan entered, she closed her eyes. One day, Claire's parents managed to sneak into the room. "Claire," Martha cried, "you have to tell the police it was a mistake. Save your brother. If the Sterling line ends, I'll kill you myself." Claire stared at them with hollow eyes. Ethan walked in and grabbed Martha's arm, his grip nearly breaking it. "Get out," Martha knelt. Ethan, Clarence is just a boy, he didn't mean it. You and Claire are together now, isn't that good? Help us." Claire's eyes filled with tears. Her own mother was using her near-death experience as a romantic plot point. Caleb Brooks, who had been lingering in the hall, finally snapped. He dragged Martha to Claire's bedside. "Look at her, look at the tubes. I should cut your throat and see if you can still talk for your son then," Martha cowered. "I did it for her without a family. She has no backing." Ethan looked at Claire's shaking form. "I will see Clarence suffer for every drop of blood she lost." He turned to Claire. "I will handle them." Ethan spent his nights on the hospital sofa. Claire finally sent him a WhatsApp message. "Why?" he replied. "I was late, and I want to go back to the beginning." Claire looked at the screen. She had died and come back. She had promised herself that if she survived, she would never chase love again. She would only chase her own happiness. "Thank you for taking care of me," she typed. "But let us be like the seasons that do not return." Ethan read the translation. "Life is short, seek your own joy." A week later, Claire was discharged. Ethan insisted on taking her to her old apartment. "I don't need your charity," Claire typed as they sat in the car. "We are divorced, we are not friends." Ethan didn't flinch. "I'm not doing this for charity. I'm doing it because I want to. We aren't married, but I want to start over as friends." Claire laughed silently, her eyes cold. "I died once, Ethan. The divorce wasn't just a paper, it was the end of my obsession with you. Let it go." She sent him a final poem. "Rain does not fall back to heaven, spilled water cannot be gathered. Your path and mine now flow in opposite directions." Ethan looked at her. "Then I will follow your flow until the day I die." At her apartment, Claire tried to shut Ethan out, but he followed her in. He had already had the place renovated and stocked with her favorite things. "Go away," she typed. Ethan ignored her and started boiling water. "Take your medicine, I'm staying until you're settled." Claire grabbed the medicine bottle and read the label. She looked at him. "When did you find out?" Ethan sighed. "After the attack. The doctors did a full scan." Claire's voice was a raspy whisper. "So you've known all along?" Ethan panicked. "Don't speak, use the phone, I wasn't trying to trick you, I just didn't want to burden you." Claire typed furiously. "So this is pity? This is your way of paying your penance?" "It's not pity, Claire," Claire pointed to the door. Her bandage was soaking with blood from the strain of her anger. Ethan backed away, terrified for her. I'm going, just don't talk," he left, but messaged her from the hallway. "The doctor is coming, take the medicine. I'll wait for you to be ready," Claire replied. "It ends here." Caleb Brooks arrived at the apartment a few minutes later, having seen Claire's SOS message. He bumped into Ethan in the hallway. "What are you doing here?" Ethan growled. "The lady called," Caleb smirked, showing his phone. "Unlike you, I'm invited," Ethan laughed. "She sent a group message to all her contacts. You're not special." The doctor arrived and treated Claire's throat. Ethan and Caleb stood in the doorway like bodyguards. "No more talking," the doctor warned. Ethan saw Caleb out, then turned to Claire. "I'm not leaving. You can't cook for yourself yet. I'll stay in the guest room." "I won't bother you." Claire was too tired to fight. She looked at his final message. "When you're better, I'll take you to see them. You deserve your own justice." "Where are they?" she typed. "A psychiatric ward," Ethan replied. Ethan spent the next 2 weeks as a house husband. He cleaned, he worked from the sofa, and he cooked surprisingly well. One evening, Claire sat at the table. Her voice was slightly better. "Go home, Ethan, we're even." Ethan looked up. "I don't want to be even. I want to be with you." "I loved you once," Claire said, her voice like sandpaper. "But that girl died at the courthouse. There's nothing left for you here." Ethan didn't move. "Then I'll wait for the new you to love me back." Claire looked at the man who had once been her ice king. He was now just a man holding a spatula, looking at her with a desperation she once felt for him. "I'm sick, Ethan. I'm going to forget you anyway." Ethan walked over and took her hand. "Then I'll introduce myself to you every single morning for the rest of our lives. Hello, I'm Ethan, the man who's going to spend today making you happy." "That doesn't sound so bad, does it?" Claire looked away, but she didn't pull her hand back. For the first time in 3 years, the silence between them didn't feel like a weapon. It felt like a beginning. Ethan leaned back in his chair and smiled suddenly. "Settle the score? I think that's impossible. A divorce certificate doesn't mean we have no connection. Is it a crime for a man to pursue his ex-wife?" Claire Sterling looked at him. This was the first time Ethan Rivers had explicitly stated his intentions. You can pursue whoever you want, but the mistake is that I don't want to be pursued by you, and perhaps you don't understand feelings at all." Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. "Why do you say that?" Claire took a deep breath, trying to ignore the discomfort in her throat. "I've read all the files on Serafina Donnelly, the things you did for her. I find it hard to believe those were the actions of just a brother. You say you've figured out your feelings, but as a woman, I don't think you have. To you, what happened at the courthouse that day must have been a massive blow. My mother-in-law's actions, my family's betrayal given your temperament as a wealthy scion, your anger and pity probably outweigh everything else. But Ethan, I've told you before, I don't need anyone's sympathy, especially not yours. Yes, I'm sick, but this illness won't turn me into a cripple overnight, nor will it change how I live. So I'm begging you give me one last bit of dignity." Ethan just stared at her quietly, his eyes filled with confusion. "Is that really how you viewed everything I've done since your accident?" Claire nodded without hesitation. She didn't want to speak anymore. Her throat was starting to throb. She needed to protect it. Ethan propped his arms on the table and leaned toward her, gazing at her for a long time before finally speaking. "I admit I made mistakes in the past, but regarding Serafina, I never had a single improper thought about her. I didn't even have the urge to kiss her. Do you think if a person truly loves someone, they wouldn't want to possess them? It's true, I've been cold and detached since I was a child. I didn't like interacting with women, so I couldn't distinguish many things. But when I'm with you, I get angry. If someone stands too close to you, or holds your hand, or even has too much contact with you, I go mad. I want to hit people. I never felt that way with Serafina. When she got married, I just felt the man wasn't right for her, and that she shouldn't burden someone else given her health. I thought loving someone meant wishing them well, but..." He paused. "But if it were you, just the thought makes me want to smash things. That day when you were standing with Caleb Brooks, I practically wanted to rush over and lock you in a room so you'd stop flirting with others. Tell me why the change? Can you tell me?" Claire lowered her eyes. There were things she didn't know how to say or how to make him understand. She looked up as if she had made a decision. Her voice was firm. "Some people are meant to be missed for a lifetime, and I am destined to be the one you missed." In the guest room, Ethan sat silently throughout the night. The wind howled outside. He looked at the pitch-black sky and couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. He stood up and walked to the bedroom door, gently turning the handle. He approached Claire's bedside. The woman on the bed seemed to be sleeping fitfully, her furrowed brows suggesting a troubled dream. Ethan's gaze fell on a crumpled document on the nightstand. He picked it up gently. It was the divorce agreement he and Claire had drafted. A wave of nausea and pain rolled through his stomach. Looking at the sleeping Claire, he knelt down and brushed the hair away from her forehead. "I'm sorry," he whispered sadly, "but I don't even know how to make it up to you." Replacing the agreement, he stood up and left the room. The moment the door closed, Claire, who had been pretending to sleep, slowly opened her eyes. Looking at the agreement, she let out an almost inaudible sigh. She sat up. The room was empty now, save for the gauzy curtains fluttering in the breeze. Claire walked out onto the balcony. Looking down, she saw Ethan's car driving out of the complex until its taillights disappeared. Claire wrapped her arms around herself. She was only human. She couldn't stop loving him just by saying so. But she had set a deadline and a wager for herself. The deadline had passed, and she had lost the bet. This ending, less love, should not continue. "I'm sorry," she whispered to herself. She was sorry that she was no longer willing to bear the old pain, sorry that she lacked the courage to keep chasing him, and sorry for everything she had endured. On the other side of town, a car sped through the night. Ethan drove straight back to the villa where he and Claire used to live. Opening the car door, he looked at the dark building. The lights that once greeted him were gone. Suppressing the desolation in his heart, he walked inside. The hollow atmosphere made him feel even worse. He went to the second floor and pushed open the door to Serafina's memorial room. Looking at her shrine, Ethan felt a crushing weight. He lit some incense and sat down. "Sira," he said softly, "this time I'm really letting you go. Be happy down there with that boy. My wife is too hard to win back because of the sins I've committed." He picked up Serafina's photo. She was smiling radiantly. Ethan smiled unconsciously. "When we were kids, you loved following me around. I had never dealt with girls, so I mistook my protective instinct for love. Because of that, I didn't protect you well, and I didn't protect the woman who entered my life later. I really am a fool. But Sierra, everything is my own fault. I'm not as responsible as that boy was. At least he lived more transparently, while I was too cowardly. I was so afraid of my own health that I kept pushing away everyone and everything I should have held on to. Sierra, you understand what I'm saying, right? I'm tearing this room down. You're free now. You, your boy, and your father take care of your mother. And protect your sister-in-law. Let her stay with me until our hair turns white. Though first, she has to forgive me. You know. He talked for a long time until the sky began to pale. He finally set the photo down and called D. Archer. Tear down this memorial room today. On the other end of the line, D was startled. Are you sure? Yes. Let everything return to how it should be. D was silent for a long moment before saying, once you decide, there's no going back. Have you really seen into your own heart? Ethan looked around the room one last time and smiled bitterly. D, I'm afraid the gloom of this place will keep Claire from staying with me for much longer. In Claire's apartment. She looked at Caleb Brooks, who was holding a bag of breakfast, and rubbed her temples. Caleb walked into the kitchen as if he lived there. Where did Ethan go last night? Wandering around in the middle of the night instead of resting. Typical, Claire was surprised. You were downstairs all night? Caleb nodded, making no effort to hide it. Lots on my mind lately. Didn't feel like going home, so I found some peace under your building. Don't overthink it, I was just finding a place to hide. I won't be a burden to you. Claire opened her mouth, but her throat hurt. She quickly sent a WhatsApp message. This isn't good. I hope you understand nothing happened between us back then, and nothing will happen now. I accept you as a friend, but if there's anything else, I will explicitly refuse. Caleb went silent for a moment. Looking at her medicine bottles, he finally broke the tension. Is it because of the brain atrophy? Is that why you're pushing everyone away, wanting to bear it all alone until the end? Claire froze. When did you find out? Did Ethan tell you? Caleb scoffed. That guy wouldn't say a word. I overheard the doctor looking for a guardian. But Claire, though I know my family background isn't simple, I've thought about it. I want to take one more shot at pursuing you. Claire sat down tiredly and typed. Caleb, whether in the past or the future, I don't think I will ever fall in love with you. I gave all my love to Ethan before, and now I only have love for myself. You are wonderful, but you aren't right for me. I don't care what you're trying to win. I just want to tell you clearly, I don't have those feelings for you. I don't want to give you a nice guy card. We just aren't a match. I hope you understand. Caleb laughed. You're quite sharp with your rejections. What about Ethan? After everything he put you through, do you forgive him? Claire shook her head. I never hated him, so there's no talk of forgiveness. We were just travelers on the same path. One traveler took a wrong turn, but nothing else changed. As for my illness, I don't want it to be my label. I want you to forget it. Also, if you truly liked me, I hope you'll stop saying these things. Remember, I've been inside a powerful family before, and this was the ending. Don't give me any promises. You should know that in this world, promises are the most hollow things of all. Caleb took a deep breath and finally nodded. I know. That's why I haven't forced you. I just wanted to try one last time while that guy was gone. Looks like I failed again. Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for you. For me, I can accept it as long as you're happy. But even if we aren't lovers, we can still be friends, right? Regarding ancient poetry translation, I really love having you as a partner. Even if I don't do that job anymore, I don't want to lose the hobby. What do you think? Claire smiled slightly. Me too. We will always be partners. Nothing can change that. Caleb's nose felt a bit prickly. Setting out the breakfast, he said, I've handled the situation with Ivy Evans. Claire asked in surprise, what situation? She was the one who spread the rumors about us. I don't plan on letting her off easy. To us, being a teacher is sacred. I won't allow a rotten apple to ruin the profession. Claire sighed, thinking of that ambitious woman who had simply taken a wrong path, but she didn't say anything. Caleb looked up and noticed the door was half open. He had forgotten to close it when he came in. He locked eyes with Ethan Rivers, who was standing outside. A smirk touched Caleb's lips. He looked at Claire, who had her back to the door, and suddenly asked, Can I ask you one question? I want you to answer it yourself, honestly. Don't worry about me having other ideas since we've cleared the air, okay? Claire didn't think much of it and nodded. Caleb fixed his gaze on the man standing outside and said every word clearly. "Do you still love Ethan Rivers?" Claire took a deep breath and answered decisively, "No." Caleb nodded with a smile. "Fine, then we're all at the same starting line. No one has an advantage. That's good, right?" Only then did Claire realize Caleb wasn't looking at her, but behind her. She turned quickly and saw Ethan standing silently by the door. She said nothing, turned back, and continued eating her breakfast. Ethan came in carrying a bag of breakfast pastries. He set them down and looked at Caleb. A man showing up at someone else's house so early in the morning seems rather inconvenient. Caleb chuckled. "What about you? I live here, but you have no relationship anymore, so it's also inconvenient for you, Mr. Rivers. But I'm the ex-husband. No matter how you calculate it, it's more convenient for me than for you, Professor Brooks." Claire didn't want to listen to this nonsense. She stood up. "You two talk. I need to go to the hospital for a follow-up." "I'll drive you." "I'll drive you," they both said at once. The result was obvious. Claire went with neither of them. After she left, the two men sat there facing each other. Caleb spoke first. "I'll be blunt, we're in the same boat. Don't use some debt of gratitude to coerce Claire into submission." Ethan opened his breakfast and began to eat slowly. "For a professor, you're not very composed. I'm not that kind of person. On the other hand, with your personality, you're really not suited to lead the Brooks group." Caleb was speechless. Rare to see someone as good at personal attacks as you. "Likewise. That woman, Ivy Evans, do you need me to intervene?" "No need. I won't trouble you with such a small matter. But on your end, what do you plan to do with the Sterling parents?" "You've asked that before. Every debt has its debtor. I'll let Claire handle it herself. I'll just assist from the side." Caleb nodded with satisfaction. "Not bad. Acting like a man for once. By the way, Claire doesn't love you anymore. What's the point of clinging to her? According to the logic of a TV drama, this is the part where the male lead gets his comeuppance. You know that?" Ethan suddenly lost his appetite. "If she loved me and was trying to get revenge, I'd welcome it. But she doesn't even have hatred. Where's the comeuppance in that?" Caleb coughed awkwardly. "Then this is even more tragic than a novel. It means there's no hope. If I'm not the second lead, then who's the final hero?" Ethan's frown deepened. "What on earth do you spend your days reading? Romance novels?" "Forget I said anything." "Goodbye." Caleb grabbed his coat and bolted without looking back. Ethan shook his head at Caleb's retreating figure, but when he thought of Claire's words, his stomach churned and his heart felt a sharp, stabbing pain. Clutching his chest, he leaned back in the chair, closing his eyes to breathe. He wished it were like a TV show. As long as they could be together again, he didn't care how much he had to suffer. At the hospital, Claire looked at her medical records, her expression grave. She looked at the doctor. "So, my condition is deteriorating faster than expected?" The doctor nodded. "During your accident, you were given a lot of hormonal medications. They had a very negative impact on your condition. Since no one knew about the brain atrophy then, we only found out during the full body scan. By the time we realized, it was too late. I'm very sorry." Claire smiled understandingly. "It's all right. It's not your fault. Given the circumstances then, if you hadn't done that, you couldn't have saved me, could you? Doctor, I'm very grateful to be alive right now." The doctor pinched the bridge of his nose. "Saving people is our duty. There's no need for that. But you, what do you plan to do? Looking at the latest reports, your situation isn't ideal." Claire nodded. "Yes, based on what you said, it's no longer suitable for me to work right. My cognitive functions are starting to decline. My social life will be affected, but freelance work should still be okay." The doctor replied, "It's possible. Keep your brain active. That's fine. But the problem is, this is a terminal, incurable disease. In the later stages, if it gets serious, you might lose the ability to care for yourself. Will your family be able to take good care of you then?" Claire smiled and asked, "Doctor, you know why I was hospitalized before, don't you?" The doctor went silent. How could he not know? Slashed by her own brother, ignored by her parents. Who would care for her with family like that? Then you? If that day truly comes, I hope you'll allow me to seek euthanasia abroad. Leaving the hospital, Claire looked up at the sky. The sunny weather brought her no joy. She couldn't shake the weight in her heart. She took out her phone and messaged Ethan, "I won't be coming back for a few days. Go home." Then, she bought some daily necessities near the hospital and checked herself in as an inpatient. As the nurse arranged her bed, she couldn't help but remind her. "Miss Sterling, if you're staying to treat the brain issues, I completely agree. But you're choosing to aggressively accelerate the treatment for your throat. Those medications are harmful to your system. Most importantly, they will worsen your brain condition. Even if you can speak fluently sooner, I still think the price is too high. Won't you reconsider?" Claire was grateful for the warning but stood by her decision. She had to be able to speak fluently as soon as possible. There were things she desperately wanted to ask, and once she had the answers, she could leave without regrets. The nurse had no choice but to process the paperwork. Ethan arrived that evening. Claire looked at him, frustrated. "The doctor told you, yes, you need someone to take care of you. But Claire, there's no need to rush. I'll just speak less in the future so you don't have to talk." Claire looked down and typed a message. "You know why I'm doing this. Don't disrupt my plans." Ethan's brow was tight. "I know, but do you have to hurt yourself to speed it up? They're not going anywhere, and I'm always here. Why can't we take it slow?" Claire continued typing. "If you were me, I think you'd be even more anxious. This is my business. I hope you'll support my decision instead of interfering. Thank you." Ethan rubbed his face in frustration. "I don't want to interfere, I just don't want you to hurt yourself. I can't lose you again." Claire said nothing. She didn't know how to answer, especially since she thought they had reached an understanding. Ethan realized he had overstepped. He took a deep breath and loosened his tie. 2 weeks. 1 week of that medication is too harsh. I won't accept it. If you don't agree, I'll have them transferred to another hospital immediately, and you won't be able to find them even if you leave here." Claire was angry now. She spoke out loud, her voice raspy. "Are you threatening me?" Ethan immediately softened. "Type, just type. I'm not threatening you. I just want you to protect yourself. Can you bear the thought of being bedridden and unable to move? Just 2 weeks. Please just agree this once." Claire was stunned. To be honest, the Ethan in her memory had always been cold, almost expressionless. Sometimes she wondered if he even had human emotions. But the man before her had pain and helplessness written clearly in his eyes. His desperate compromise made her unable to believe her eyes. Suppressing the bitterness in her heart, she closed her eyes and turned away. "Fine, 2 weeks, but you're not allowed to come during these 2 weeks." Ethan knew her temper now. He didn't dare argue and agreed. Standing outside the ward, looking at the woman sitting inside, he couldn't hide the ache in his heart. He could only stand guard silently. He almost hated how he had ignored her. That once obedient and gentle person was actually so stubborn. He only truly regretted it now that he had lost her. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire knew Ethan was peeking at her through the door every day, but she ignored him every time. She had long since lost the courage to pursue love. Some pains were enough to experience once. On the day she was discharged, she could finally speak fluently. Though her voice was slightly raspy, it no longer hurt to open her mouth. However, the doctor warned her not to speak for more than 30 minutes at a time, or her vocal cords would sting from the strain. Walking out of the hospital, she saw Ethan waiting. She walked straight to him and looked up. "Take me to see them." Ethan opened the car door and couldn't help but ask, "Do you want revenge?" Claire paused as she was about to step in. "I'm looking for answers." As he closed the door, Ethan took a deep breath. He thought, her revenge had begun. Inside the psychiatric hospital, Claire looked at the strange, eerie behavior of the people around her, her eyes showing no emotion. Ethan stood beside her, somewhat surprised. He thought she would be moved, but she walked straight toward Martha Sterling's private room. She pushed the door open and told Ethan to wait outside. Standing by the door, Ethan soon heard Martha's voice from inside. She demanded, "Why did you take so long? Get us out of here now." Then came Claire's question. "Tell me the truth. Am I your biological daughter?" At that moment, Ethan really wanted a cigarette, but seeing the no smoking signs in the corridor, he suppressed his agitation and stood there, quietly listening to the sounds within, his heart aching for Claire. Inside the room, Claire looked at the disheveled middle-aged woman. She felt nothing but a sense of profound irony. Martha sneered at her daughter. After a few days, Claire looked more elegant and poised. "I gave birth to you myself, who else could have? What, now that you've latched onto the Rivers family, you don't even want your own mother? Mother, the kind that wants her daughter's life." Martha grew angry. "What do you mean by that? Your brother was trying to help you. If it weren't for him, would you be on such good terms with Ethan now? I'm telling you, You're an ungrateful wretch. If the family hadn't raised you, would you even be alive today?" Claire's whole body trembled at those words. "How can you say that? Because I didn't die, it's my fault and my brother's great noble deed? You call me ungrateful. Fine, let me ask you a few things. People say the Sterlings are a minor, wealthy family, right? After I graduated high school, I worked to pay my own college tuition. After I started working, I gave you every cent of my salary and side income. I've calculated that money, it's more than you ever spent on me. Fine, I can't pay back the fact that you gave birth to me. But as for raising me, I can say without shame that I've paid you back in full. You, how dare you talk back?" Martha turned red with rage. Claire didn't waste words and continued, "I knew you wanted me dead. I knew you and Dad agreed with Clarence's plan. I heard everything you said." Martha froze. Her son had only mentioned the plan twice. If Claire heard it, it must have been the first time. At that moment, she recalled the scene of her son pinning her daughter against the wall, and a chill ran down her spine. "Mom, this is the last time I'll call you that. Clarence made sure I paid back the debt of being raised. Since you wanted me dead, fine. Claire Sterling died a few months ago. I dropped the charges not because of any lingering affection, but because I have completely severed the bond. Madam, as a woman myself, I feel pity for you. I hope the son you love so much actually loves you back for once. Oh, and by the way, they say there are 18 levels of hell. I hope that after you die, you fall into the deepest one forever." With that, Claire turned and slammed the door. Seeing Ethan standing there, Claire smiled. "Am I terrifying?" Ethan shook his head. "You are too gentle." Claire paused, then a slight smirk touched her lips. "The gentlest blade is the most lethal. Ever heard that?" Ethan glanced at the room where Martha was still screaming curses. He took a deep breath. "True, a living hell is what they deserve." Claire started walking. "Which room is my father in?" "Upstairs, 1102. Clarence is in 1103. Claire stopped, feeling the cold draft in the corridor. She said softly, "Then let's torment them together." In Harold Sterling's room, his sleeves were tied. He sat on the bed alone, his hair graying at the temples, looking much older and more haggard. Claire walked over, untied his sleeves, and gently touched his white hair. "You've worked hard," she said with a sigh. Harold froze, seemingly not expecting those to be the first words she spoke to him. Claire sat down and looked deeply at her father for a long time before saying, "I don't want to blame you, but I have to. Do you know why?" Harold nodded heavily, his eyes red. "I was a coward. If I had been more responsible, things wouldn't have come to this. You wouldn't be where you are now. Sweetheart, does your throat still hurt?" Tears immediately filled Claire's eyes. Her lips trembled as she touched the scar on her neck. "How could it not hurt? At the time, I was so close to crying out for my mother, but then I realized, I don't have a mother anymore." Harold opened his mouth, wanting to reach out and hold her, but he knew he didn't have the right. He moved his hands, then let them slump down. Claire continued, "When I was little, I knew you were the only one in the family who didn't dislike me. I wasn't blind to the sons over daughters mentality, and I knew you were soft-hearted. Even though you loved Clarence more, you still noticed me. So I told myself, someone still loves me. But when I realized Clarence wanted me dead and you didn't refuse at that moment, I understood. Your love for me was only as long as it didn't hurt your interests. Dad, did you ever truly care about me?" Harold shook his head frantically. "I did, I really did, but I was too weak when I was young. I was suppressed by your grandmother, and after she died, I was suppressed by your mother. I may have been a scion, but I was just a hollow puppet. It's not that I didn't love you, but I didn't have any courage. I never agreed to what your brother did, but no one listened to me. When I spoke up, they called me a loser. Sweetheart, I really did love you. When you were little, I'd secretly give you things Clarence had, but I was selfish. To keep the life I had, I abandoned you. Sweetheart, I have no skills. If the Sterling name is gone, I have nothing. Your mother is capable and could remarry, and your brother could find a wealthy woman, but I have nothing left." Hearing this, Claire was already in tears. She hadn't heard the nickname, Sweetheart, in so long. Finally, she cried out, "But you still had me. If they wouldn't support you, I could have. Why did you do this to me? My salary wasn't high, but I could have given you a comfortable life." Harold went numb. After a long silence, he spoke. "That's right, you were always a filial child. Why didn't I ever think of that? Ha ha ha, I guess it just proves the saying, I thought a married daughter was like spilled water. I never considered anything else. Ha 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 ha. Harold laughed more and more frantically, slapping his own face. Claire watched, not moving to stop him. After he finished, she spoke. Whether you love me or not, you know better than I do. When Clarence slashed my throat, you didn't come to see me. When he wanted me dead, you answered with silence. When you came to the hospital later, you just walked away without a word. Dad, our relationship as father and daughter ends here. Don't worry, you won't go hungry or cold. This is your retirement home. I'll pay the fees until the day you pass away. When that time comes, please take your guilt for me and walk into hell, step by step, okay? Hearing this, Harold was completely bewildered. No, sweetheart, you have to save me. Look, you and your husband are back together, aren't you? Talk to him. Get me out of here. I promise I'll only have you as my daughter from now on. I'll only love you, okay? Claire had already stood up. She stepped back, looking at Harold's hopeful face, her heart filled only with desolation. So, for your own sake, you won't even acknowledge Clarence. Now I truly understand your love for me. From now on. Mr. Sterling, take care. She ignored his shouting, turned, and left the room. Seeing Ethan outside, she glanced at Clarence's room next door. Move Clarence to a shared room, the worst one. Ethan grabbed her arm, worried. Don't go into that room, I'll handle him. Claire looked up at him, her red eyes filled with an emotion Ethan couldn't understand: despair. She slowly pulled her arm away, opened the door, and walked in. Seeing the furious Clarence Sterling inside, Claire smiled. My dear brother, it's been a long time. Because of his strength, Clarence had long been restrained. He lay there, his eyes filled with rage. Claire walked over and gently touched the contours of his face, a cold smile on her lips. I never expected our next meeting would be here. Clarence immediately began to struggle, but since he was tied so securely, he couldn't move at all. Claire, I'm telling you, you better get someone to release me right now. Otherwise, once I get out, I will make your life a living hell. Claire raised an eyebrow. Brother, why are you stealing my lines? Really, it's quite embarrassing. Clarence was stunned. What do you mean? Claire tapped her chin thoughtfully. I know how to express it. As soon as the words left her mouth, she gave Clarence several hard slaps. How was that? Does it feel good, brother? Clarence was completely dazed. He immediately screamed, Have you lost your mind, Claire? Do you want to die? Claire stepped back and pointed to the scar on her neck, mocking him. Do you think I'm still afraid of death? Clarence's pupils shrank. He turned his head away. I'm not wasting my breath on you. Get me out of here, and then go talk to that Ethan Rivers. Is this any way to treat a brother-in-law? Claire shook her head. I never thought someone could be so shameless. Clarence, did you think I kept you out of prison because I still cared about our bond? Clarence narrowed his eyes. What exactly are you trying to say? Claire walked over and suddenly grabbed a handful of Clarence's hair, cold laughter in her eyes. Me? I want to become a monster too, and then torment you step by step. I'll make your life a living hell where no one answers your cries. How does that sound? Happy? Because his scalp was in pain, Clarence struggled even harder. You're the one who's crazy. I'm your brother. Let me go right now. Hearing this, Claire's eyes went cold. That's right. The good girl Claire Sterling is dead, killed by her own brother. The Claire Sterling here now is just a heartless demon, so she wants revenge. She's going to make you suffer in this hospital until the day you die. Looking at Clarence's terrified expression, Claire smiled slightly. That's right. No one can take you out of here except a funeral hearse. I don't believe anyone in this city would dare go against the Rivers family. If you try to run, I'll report you immediately. I still have the video of you slashing my throat, dear brother. Crazy, you're completely insane. Where's Ethan? Where is he? I have to tell him what you're really like. Claire looked calmly at Clarence's panic. She felt no sense of victory, only a hollow void. I'm transferring you to the room with the most violent patients. Whether you can survive or keep your sanity in there will depend on your own skills. But Clarence, honestly, you're more sick than any of them. Take plenty of meds. I won't kill you, but I'll make sure you're the most miserable man alive. You wouldn't dare. Claire straightened her clothes and said expressionlessly, You'll find out soon enough. The treatment here is still too good for you. You don't deserve it. With that, she turned and left the room. The moment she closed the door, her legs went weak and she slumped against the wall. Fortunately, Ethan caught her. Are you okay? Claire looked up at the man and asked, Do you think I'm a bad person? Ethan shook his head. You are too gentle. If it were me, he wouldn't even have the chance to speak. Claire gave a soft laugh. You don't understand. Time is the double-edged sword that makes life a living hell. Being locked here for a lifetime is the ultimate blow to someone so arrogant. Ethan wanted to take her in his arms, but she silently refused. Do whatever tormenting needs to be done. Don't worry about me. No, because of me, torment them well. You owe me that much. Ethan looked at her. Claire's eyes were like a wasteland. There was nothing left. It was as if nothing could ever touch her again. At that moment, Ethan's heart throbbed so painfully he could hardly breathe. Watching Claire walk away, he suppressed the pain and hurried after her. What do you plan to do from now on? Claire stopped. Looking at the bright sunshine outside the hospital, she said softly, "Seize the day and strive. Time waits for no man." Ethan understood the sentiment. Translated into plain English, it meant, life is short. Seek your own joy. After returning from the hospital, Ethan sent Claire back to her apartment, then said there was something at the company and drove off in a hurry. Claire watched the car disappear, her brows furrowed in confusion. It had been a long time since she'd seen Ethan so hurried. She shook her head, questioning why she was worrying about him. Stepping out of the elevator, she ran into someone she didn't want to see, Ivy Evans. "What are you doing here?" Ivy had lost her previous arrogance. She looked haggard but still defiant. "I heard our great Miss Sterling has brain atrophy. As a former colleague, I had to come pay a visit." Claire's brow tightened. "Who told you?" "It doesn't matter who. I just felt so sorry for you when I heard the news." "Is that so?" Claire asked. Ivy nodded with a serious face. "Of course, but I am curious, did you do too many wicked things to deserve this?" Tusk, karma really is a thing, isn't it?" Claire clenched her fists. She really didn't want to argue with such a repulsive woman. Seeing no reaction, Ivy stepped closer. "I'm so curious, do the people around you have to treat you like a goddess because of your illness? Are they afraid you'll sue them if something happens?" "Oh no, wait. They must be supporting you out of humanitarian pity, right?" Those words pierced the most painful part of Claire's heart. Her greatest fear was being a burden to others. She immediately pointed toward the elevator and shouted, get out right now." Ivy stepped forward, blocking Claire's way. "Why the rush? The truth is always the most piercing. I heard you were sold to that family by your own parents." Tusk. Seems like you're just a high-class escort, aren't you?" Slap, unable to listen any longer, Claire slapped Ivy across the face and then dragged her toward the elevator. "Get out now, before I slap you again." To her surprise, Ivy wasn't angry. She actually laughed. She gently touched her cheek. "Claire, I'm already ruined, so? You might as well come down to hell with me. Trash." Claire spat out those words just as the elevator doors closed. Downstairs, Ivy looked at the video on her phone marked, "Successfully sent," her eyes gleaming with malice. Claire Sterling, just you wait. Meanwhile, Ethan had just finished a checkup at the hospital. While waiting for the results, he received a message from D. Archer. The video was on the trending topics. Claire looked pale in it, and the comments below made Ethan's heart ache. Found out who did it? Ivy Evans. Kill the video. As for Ivy Evans, if she loves being in the headlines so much, let her stay there forever. Hanging up, Ethan's finger hovered over Claire's name for a long time before he sent a text. "The evening sky is vast and red. Why not hold hands and go home together?" It was a line of poetry he had found online. The meaning was, "Today is a nice day. It's a good time to run away together." Ethan could handle anyone who wanted to hurt Claire, but between the two of them, he could only wait. The phone didn't ring for a long time. The doctor called his number. The suppressed pain in his chest surged again. He had a bad feeling. In the doctor's office, the scans were on the wall. "Mr. Rivers, your heart condition has recurred. What are the odds of success if I have surgery?" Ethan was so calm it was frightening, as if he weren't the one being diagnosed. 20%, but if you don't have surgery, you can only last 2 years at most. So I suggest you stay for treatment. 2 years? Ethan repeated the words in a low voice and smiled. 2 years was enough. Enough for him to arrange everything for Claire. Enough for her to live well in a world without Ethan Rivers. At the same time, D. Archer received Ethan's diagnosis report. First came the shock, then the fury when she heard Ethan's decision. "Ethan, have the surgery even if it's only 20%. That's better than only 2 years of life." Dee tried to persuade him, hoping he would change his mind. But Ethan was unwilling. If he were hospitalized, what would happen to Claire? If no one was there to accompany her and take care of her, what would she do? D, 2 years is enough. Dee was speechless, tears welling in her eyes as she looked at him. Ethan, why put yourself through this? Ethan said no more. On the other side, the video incident caused by Ivy Evans was suppressed in time by Ethan, so Claire had no idea what had happened. However, she never expected to receive a call like this just when everything seemed to be settling. Mrs. Rivers, is there something you need? Claire, I'm calling to apologize. I was wrong to do those things to you. It was all my fault. It had nothing to do with Ethan. I was thinking the wrong way. I'm so sorry. Rosemary Blackwood Rivers was full of apologies. This was what Claire had once wanted to hear, but now she felt nothing. I accept your apology. Is there anything else, madam? Claire, Ethan truly loves you. Can you see if you two can start over? What happened before had nothing to do with him. You know how he is. For your sake, he sent me and his father out of the country. He did all this for you, don't you see? Looking back at the bleak path I've walked, I find neither wind nor rain nor sun. Madam, the past is the past. Ethan and I are divorced. We won't have any relationship in the future. Let's leave it at that. I wish you peace and joy. Claire hung up and sat on the sofa alone, lost in thought. The sound of keys turning came from the door. Ethan's figure appeared. Claire turned to look, frowning slightly. I said it's over between us. Ethan, why can't you just let me go? Ethan stood at the door, accepting Claire's resentment. Claire, can't we start over? Forget everything from before. Leave the keys and go. Claire issued the eviction order. Ethan looked at her back, his eyes full of sorrow and reluctance. I'll come again tomorrow. Rest well. Call me if you need anything. For a period after that, Ethan stayed by Claire's side every day. Even if they didn't speak a word for days, he was willing. Claire's symptoms were getting worse. From forgetting small things at first, she now couldn't remember many things from the past. Ethan saw it all and made a silent decision. But before he could act on it, something went wrong with Claire, and Ethan didn't dare delay any longer. Claire was missing. Ethan looked at the empty apartment. Claire was gone, her keys and phone sitting neatly on the coffee table. But the person was nowhere to be found. Claire Sterling. Ethan searched the whole place but couldn't find her. A massive sense of panic enveloped him, making his heart race. He knew what kind of person Claire was now. She would never leave without a word. Even if she had decided to leave, she would have sent a text to let him know. But now there was nothing. Ethan's eyes were bloodshot. A sharp pain came from his heart, turning his face pale. But he couldn't care about his own body. His mind was entirely consumed by where Claire might be. D, Claire is missing. Get people to help me find her. Ethan's voice was low and raspy. D. Archer was anxious. Ethan, don't panic. Your heart can't take the stress. I'll have people look immediately. Don't panic. Hanging up, Ethan took a deep breath to steady his ragged breathing. He couldn't collapse yet. Claire hadn't been found. She was waiting for him to find her. 4 full hours passed. Ethan's heart was in his throat. He couldn't calm down. It wasn't until he saw Claire at the police station that his vision blurred. He still rushed forward and pulled Claire into his arms. That sense of fullness brought Ethan out of his panic. He had found Claire. She was still here. Ethan, let go. Never, Ethan gritted out those words, his embrace so tight it was as if he wanted to rub Claire into his very blood and soul so she could never leave him again. Mr. Rivers, Miss Sterling forgot where her home was. Don't let her go out alone again, the officer said. Ethan nodded. He certainly wouldn't let Claire go out alone. He couldn't survive a second scare like this leaving the police station. Ethan didn't take Claire home. Instead, he took her straight to the hospital. After a series of tests, the results made Ethan reach a firm decision. Doctor, let's admit her for treatment. No need, Claire refused. She stood up and walked out. She knew her condition. Brain atrophy was incurable. Staying in the hospital was just wasting money while waiting to die. Claire, you have to stay. Ethan grabbed her arm forcefully. Ethan, I'm not staying. This is my business, and it has nothing to do with you. You don't need to interfere. Your business is my business. You are my wife, the person I love. We are divorced. Claire repeated the fact Ethan didn't want to admit, speaking calmly. No matter how unwilling you are, the past is already the past. Most things in this world cannot be kept. Youth fades like flowers in the mirror. Ethan, let's end it here. For the rest of my life, I just want to be alone. I don't need you to interfere with my life or my death. Ethan knew how determined Claire could be, but he didn't realize she was so resolute about giving up on her own life. "Claire, do you not want treatment because you don't want me to keep bothering you?" "No, Ethan, I don't hate you. I just think there shouldn't be anything between us anymore. I don't know if you're like this because of my illness or for some other reason, but it has nothing to do with me anymore. So stop caring about me." She doesn't hate me. Ethan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If he could, he'd rather she hate him. At least that would mean he still had a place in her heart. At least it would mean there was still a chance between them. "Claire, I can ignore everyone else, but I cannot ignore you." Ethan made the decision unilaterally. Claire was hospitalized for treatment, even though they both knew it wouldn't make any difference. Caleb Brooks didn't find out about Claire's disappearance until a few days later. By her bedside, the atmosphere between Claire and Ethan was silent. "Claire, it's better to be in the hospital. It's better than living alone. I wouldn't feel right about it either." One doesn't strike a person with a smiling face. Moreover, Caleb was a friend to Claire. "Thank you for coming to see me. Your throat isn't fully healed yet. Try to speak as little as possible." Ethan interrupted their pleasantries. Claire ignored him and continued talking to Caleb. "No need to thank me. I said that as long as you're willing, the doors of the Brooks family are always open to you." Caleb bared his heart to Claire, ignoring Ethan's fiery gaze. Claire had already said all the necessary rejections. To say more would be hurtful. She could only shake her head in silence. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. At least Claire wouldn't accept Caleb. A sharp pain suddenly shot through his chest. Ethan's face turned pale. He quickly found an excuse to leave. Caleb and Claire watched him go, each with their own thoughts. "I have something to say to him. Rest for a bit. I'll come back to see you in a while," Caleb said, walking out of the ward. In the corridor, Ethan was crouching on the floor, his face a ghostly blue-white. He looked like a dead man. Caleb was shocked. "What's wrong with you?" Hearing the voice, Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He clenched his hands into fists. "Nothing. You call this nothing? Look at your face, who would believe that?" Caleb exposed the lie without mercy, frowning. "If you don't tell me, I'll tell Claire." "Wait," Ethan grabbed Caleb. He looked up at him, suppressing the pain. "My heart condition recurred. It's no big deal." Heart condition. The words triggered Caleb's memory. He looked Ethan up and down, wanting to mock him for bringing it on himself. But looking at him now, he couldn't say it. "Since it's recurred, go get treated. You think you can just tough it out?" "I want to stay with her. She's in the hospital." "She's not going anywhere." Caleb stopped mid-sentence. Yes, Claire wouldn't run away, but she would forget him. Ethan knew what Caleb was thinking and gave a bitter smile. "If I don't get treatment, I have 2 years left to stay with her. I don't want her to forget me. So even if I die in 2 years, I want her to live well, according to her own wishes." The pain in his chest subsided a bit, but the feeling of suffocation deepened. "Caleb, don't tell her about me. I'm asking you." Asking that word actually came out of Ethan Rivers' mouth. Caleb looked at the man who should have been in his prime, but was now shrouded in gloom, and he nodded. "Even if I don't say anything, she'll find out eventually. She won't know. At least for several years after I die, she won't know." Ethan's words were certain, leaving Caleb with no room for rebuttal. "Ethan, even so, I won't stop pursuing Claire. She is my wife. You don't have a chance." Ethan suppressed all his vulnerability and spoke coldly. Then he cleared away all signs of illness and pushed open the ward door. Claire had fallen asleep at some point. Ethan stepped forward and carefully pulled the phone from her hand, intending to place it on the nightstand. He didn't mean to look, but he saw the page she had left open. "The splendor is like a dream, always without proof. Where in this world can one ask for deep affection?" Ethan typed the sentence into his phone to search for its meaning, but the definition stung his heart. The meaning was, the past is nothing but a dream. Looking at Claire's sleeping face, Ethan silently set the phone aside and walked out. "Claire, do you really feel the past was for nothing? Then tell me, what does this heart full of love mean?" Ethan never asked the question out loud. Perhaps he was afraid that while Claire denied everything, she would also deny this late-coming love of his. Days passed, and Claire's condition became more serious. Ethan stayed by her bed month after month, watching her face grow paler day by day. He watched her slowly forget everything from the past. The only thing she didn't forget was reading ancient poetry every day. Ethan carefully collected every single poem and translation Claire wrote by hand. Until one day, when Ethan arrived, The table was empty. Claire sat there looking at him with hollow eyes. "Stop coming here." This was the first time in so long that Claire had spoken to him first. Ethan didn't know how to respond for a moment. "You're willing to talk to me?" Ethan walked over to her and leaned down to look at her, his heart racing. "Ethan Rivers," I said, "stop coming. I said I would always stay with you." "I don't need it," Claire interrupted him sharply, looking at him with agitation. "I don't need your sympathy, and I don't need your pity. Ethan, do you know that every time you show up and try to please me, it makes me afraid? Why can't you be like you were before, when you didn't even care to look at me?" That was the real Ethan Rivers. "Claire, I just want to be with you. I don't want it." Claire laughed softly, her trembling hand touching Ethan's face. "I have no thoughts for you, do not have thoughts for me. Ethan, I don't think of you, so don't think of me anymore." Her fingertips were ice cold, but they felt like a jolt to Ethan's heart. "You're in a bad mood today. I'll come again tomorrow." Ethan fled the ward. Dee Archer stood beside him. Looking at him, her heart ached. "Ethan, this can't go on." Claire's condition was getting worse. Sooner or later, she would forget the past entirely. Dee didn't know how Ethan would handle it then. The thought of Claire forgetting Ethan was something she didn't dare say out loud, fearing it would trigger his heart condition. "Ethan, listen to me. Have the surgery. Don't you want to stay with her?" Dee had tried to persuade him many times, but Ethan had always refused. This time was no different. Ethan shook his head and said raspy, "If I have the surgery, I won't have time to stay with her, and I don't want her to see me in that state." Dee was speechless. She could only help him sit down and take his medicine. Afterward, they went to the doctor's office to discuss Claire's current state. According to the doctor, in the later stages of brain atrophy, patients experience personality changes. For example, Claire's sudden irritability today. This behavior would become frequent. Eventually, the patient would lose all memory and suffer from dementia. Hearing this, Ethan's heart sank. He thought Claire's condition wouldn't deteriorate so quickly. He thought he could at least stay with her while she was still herself. But everything was happening so fast. Ethan composed himself and returned to the ward. Claire was still in the same position she was in when he left. He walked over and looked at the woman he once didn't care about, his heart full of regret. "Claire, it's Ethan." Claire's eyelashes flickered, and her eyes finally found focus. "I know, Ethan, I haven't forgotten you." Claire spoke softly, knowing where that question came from. In fact, the moment she couldn't control her anger and shouted at Ethan today, she had realized something was wrong. The man before her still looked exactly like the one she had once loved most. His devotion was something she had once seen him give to Serafina Donnelly, but she never thought she would see the day he gave it to her. "Ethan, let me go. Today I learned a verse. It might not be appropriate. Gazing at the mountains and rivers, it is futile to pine for the distant. The falling flowers and the rain only deepen the sorrow of spring. Better to cherish the one before your eyes." Ethan's low voice recited the poem, and the words seemed to echo in Claire's heart. "Claire, you are the one before my eyes and the one in my heart." The night was as cold as water. Ethan had left, but his words lingered. He said she was the one before his eyes and the one in his heart. These were the words Claire had once most wanted to hear, but now everything had changed. She could no longer find those feelings. Claire looked down at her trembling, weak hands, the torment brought by the disease. She knew what the final stages of brain atrophy would be like. She knew what she would become. She couldn't accept that version of herself. And how could she let Ethan see a version of her that even she hated? The next day, when Caleb Brooks arrived, Ethan was out. "Caleb, will you do me a favor?" Caleb was stunned. Looking at Claire's pale face, he had a guess. "You want to leave?" "Yes, I don't want to stay in the hospital, just lingering on." As she spoke, Claire gave a bitter smile and lifted her hand, her eyes full of disappointment and helplessness. "I can't even move a pen now." "Caleb, you know what that means to me?" Caleb was speechless. He knew, of course. But compared to that, wasn't it more important for Claire to stay alive? "Does Ethan know you want to leave?" "No, he wouldn't agree. So Caleb, help me get out of here." The faint light in Claire's eyes was something Caleb couldn't refuse. He nodded and agreed. Picking a day, Claire used a random excuse to send Ethan away. Immediately after, Caleb arrived. Claire took one last look at the ward she had lived in for so long. There was a white paper on the nightstand. It was the last sentence she left for Ethan. "From now on, I have no heart to love the cool night. Let the moon sink behind the west tower as it pleases. Ethan, may we both be well. Claire walked out of the ward and closed the door. The sun outside was blinding. Claire followed silently behind Caleb. In the parking garage, Caleb opened the car door and signaled Claire to get in quickly. But Claire didn't move. She just stood 5 paces away from Caleb, looking at him with confusion. Claire, what's wrong? Do I know you? Caleb froze. They locked eyes, one shocked, the other puzzled. You don't remember me? When Caleb asked the question, his voice was choked. He knew that eventually she would forget everything, but he didn't expect it to happen so soon. Claire had forgotten him closing the car door. Caleb walked over and rubbed his temples, softening his voice. My name is Caleb Brooks. I am a very good friend of yours. I'm here today to take you away. Caleb Brooks. Claire whispered his name, tilted her head, and smiled. My name is Claire Sterling. For a moment, Caleb felt like they were back at their first meeting. That was how she had introduced herself then. But now, Caleb looked at Claire, a flash of sorrow in his eyes. Do you remember Ethan Rivers? Hearing the name, Claire was stunned, and the smile vanished from her face. Do you know him? With that one question, Caleb understood. As expected, Claire could never forget Ethan Rivers. That man had always been the most important one in her heart. Caleb thought about it and gave a self-deprecating smile. Claire Sterling. Ethan's voice suddenly rang through the garage, interrupting Caleb. He watched as the man strode over, his face dark with fury. Caleb stepped forward to stand between Claire and Ethan. Ethan Rivers, what are you trying to do? Ethan ignored him. He looked Claire up and down. Only when he saw she was unharmed did he breathe a sigh of relief. His legs buckled slightly, and he swayed. He suppressed the stabbing pain in his chest. God knew what he had felt when he didn't find Claire in the ward. Fortunately, he had seen the note she left and knew she wanted to leave. Taking a deep breath, Ethan said raspy, Claire, come back. Claire didn't move, she just looked at Ethan. She didn't remember Caleb, but her desire to leave the hospital and Ethan hadn't diminished in the slightest. What do I have to do for you to let me go? Claire, stop it. The best thing for your condition right now is to stay in the hospital for treatment. But I don't want to. Do you know what happens to brain atrophy patients in the later stages? I can't accept that version of myself. I'd rather die than become like that. Ethan, let me go, okay? Claire's words were earnest, and they pierced Ethan's throat. I know everything. Then why won't you let me go? Ethan, you say you love me, but everything you're doing is just torturing me. You don't love me at all, you're just getting revenge, aren't you? Claire looked at Ethan. Her questions were like a blade stabbing into his heart over and over again. Torturing? Ethan didn't know what to say. He clearly loved her. Come here, Claire. Ethan didn't try to persuade her anymore. He just wanted her to come back to him. Claire didn't move. Caleb stood between them, listening to their conversation. Claire doesn't want to stay. Why can't you just follow her wishes? What do you know? Caleb, since Claire is fine this time, I won't hold it against you. But if you ever dare to try and take her away behind my back again, I won't let you or the Brooks family off. Ethan shot Caleb a cold look, then grabbed Claire's hand and led her toward the hospital building. Caleb watched them go and sighed. The wind and moon enter my trap of longing. How can the longing bear not being fulfilled? His love had been one-sided from beginning to end. Between Claire and Ethan, Caleb couldn't imagine anything but death keeping them apart. They were so stubborn. Why couldn't they understand that whatever is forced is always a struggle? Claire had always known she couldn't win against Ethan, which was why she tried to leave behind his back. Now that she'd been caught, she couldn't escape. The two of them returned to the ward in silence. Everything was as it was when she left, except the paper on the nightstand was gone. Stay here, I'm going to get the doctor. The moment Ethan closed the door, it felt as if all his strength had been drained. He leaned against the wall for a long time before finally coming to his senses. Claire was still there. He hadn't lost her when Caleb came over. He saw Ethan's expression of relief after a near miss. The words of blame he had prepared suddenly died in his throat. He frowned and walked over. How are you? What are you still doing here? Claire forgot me. Ethan's half-closed eyes snapped open. He looked at Caleb in disbelief. Caleb was also irritated by the thought. He never expected that the first person Claire would forget would be him. How? How is it so fast? Ethan whispered to himself, unsure if he was asking himself or Caleb. He didn't even know how he got to the doctor's office, or how he arranged for Claire's tests. The patient's condition is indeed deteriorating. The family needs to pay more attention. Besides medication, try to talk about the past more to stimulate her brain." The doctor's words rang in Ethan's ears. He heard them clearly. "Doctor, how much longer will she be lucid?" "We can't be certain. It depends on the patient's own will." On the way back to the ward, Ethan's mind was filled with the look on Caleb's face when he said Claire had forgotten him. Standing at the door, looking through the glass at the woman lying on the bed, Ethan didn't dare push the door open. He was truly afraid that the next thing Claire would say to him was, "Who are you?" If that happened, Ethan didn't know what he would do. Ethan stood at the door and met Claire's gaze. They were silent. Seeing that Ethan wasn't going to speak, Claire looked away. He walked over and sat by the bed. He opened his mouth to say something, but only a firm command came out. "Claire, you're not allowed to forget me, forget anyone else, but don't forget me." Ethan ignored Claire's avoidance and pulled her into his arms. He kept whispering that command, and it was heartbreaking to hear. Dee Archer stood at the door. Looking at the scene, she then looked down at the treatment plan for Ethan's heart and chose to leave. Ethan's realization of his love for Claire came late, but it was more intense than anything. As long as Claire was alive, he wouldn't choose surgery. He'd rather die than not be by her side. Since the failed escape, Claire hadn't tried to leave again. Every day, she was like a robot, eating, taking medicine, sleeping. When there was nothing to do, she just huddled on the bed, spacing out. Ethan watched her, feeling a dull pain in his heart. Claire's words from that day still rang in his ears. Now, Ethan felt that this wasn't a torture for Claire, but a torture for him. He could do nothing about her deteriorating condition. He could only watch. And he had to live in constant fear that one day she would forget him. A sense of powerlessness and panic enveloped Ethan, leaving him nowhere to hide. Taking a deep breath, he pushed aside his messy thoughts and entered the ward. "Claire, how are you today?" He reached out to touch her head, his fingers running through her hair. But the moment his fingers left her hair, the smile on Ethan's face froze. Even his fingertips trembled. At some point, more than half of Claire's hair had turned white. He pulled his hand back stiffly, staring at that white patch. His vision went dark. "Ethan, my parents are here." Claire pushed him away and walked toward the door. Ethan was stunned for a moment, then looked in the direction she was walking. He saw nothing but emptiness. There was no one at the door. Ethan grabbed Claire's wrist, his voice low and trembling. "Claire, look carefully. No one is there. Your parents didn't come?" Ethan gripped Claire's shoulders and shook her gently, trying to wake her up. Claire looked at him blankly, then turned to the door. There really was no one there. Claire paused, and her smile looked more like a sob. "Ethan, was I just hallucinating?" "You just saw wrong," Ethan lied, though the lie couldn't fool him or Claire. Claire's lip curled. She pulled away from Ethan and walked back to the bed. Ethan stood there looking at her, unsure what to say. "Hallucinations? Right, why would they come to see me? Look at me, I'm just sick, and I'm already having delusions like that." Claire spoke softly, looking at the blue sky outside the window. "Ethan, how much longer will I stay lucid? How much longer can I live as an independent person?" Claire's question was like a knife to Ethan's throat, making it hard for him to breathe. "Don't talk like that. You'll stay lucid. You won't what?" Ethan couldn't finish the sentence because Claire's condition was deteriorating so fast that even he could hardly bear it. Claire looked at the man who had stopped mid-sentence. She understood. "Ethan," she seemed to want to say something more, but she suddenly began to convulse. Ethan was shocked and rushed forward to hold her, firmly protecting her mouth so she wouldn't bite her tongue. Seizures were one of the clinical symptoms of brain atrophy. The seizure only lasted a few seconds, but to Ethan, it felt like 100 years. Every second, his heart felt like it was being fried in a pan. Finally, Claire slowly came to her senses. The cause of the 3 lives is unknown. The floating shadows of splendor are a shame to poetry, falling into a red dust dream for no reason, stirring up 3,000 strands of trouble. Claire recited the poem in her mind. Ethan's wrist, which she had bitten until it bled, was right before her eyes. Love was truly the most difficult cold case in the world to solve. "Ethan Rivers, why put yourself through this?" And, "Ethan, let's end it here. I really?" Claire avoided his eyes and used all her strength to beg, "I really can't hold on anymore." Claire's words were like thunder in Ethan's heart. He stared blankly at the woman he loved so deeply. When had she become so frail? Her arms were so thin it felt like they'd break if he squeezed too hard. There was no more laughter on her face. She had become silent, and she didn't even touch her beloved ancient poems anymore. A sense of desolation hit Ethan's heart, and even his fingertips were shaking. Once, this woman was so proud and strong. Even before him, she never easily said the word beg. Now, she was wasting away in bed, and he wanted her to live. He thought he was doing what was best for her. But it turned out that what he thought was best was just a way of torturing her. "Claire, I'm sorry." As he spoke, Ethan pulled her into his arms. A glint of moisture appeared in his eyes. His face was full of sorrow. "Ethan, before I completely lose my mind, let me die." His body trembled. Ethan didn't refuse, he just held her tighter. The next day, Ethan arrived with a nurse. Claire's gaze moved from him to the nurse's hand. She froze for a moment, then a smile of relief touched her lips. "Ethan, thank you." A sharp pain hit his chest. He didn't speak. He just took the syringe from the nurse and walked toward Claire. Claire was slightly surprised by his actions. She didn't expect Ethan to do it himself. "Claire, everything you have was given to you by me. Even your death must come from my hands." As Ethan spoke, the needle entered the vein in Claire's wrist. The cold liquid surged through her veins to her limbs. Claire felt her body grow cold and weak. She collapsed into Ethan's arms, her fingers tightly clutching his sleeve. She knew why Ethan was doing this, but she didn't agree with his feelings. Claire was struggling to breathe, but she insisted on speaking, one word at a time. "Ethan, I stopped loving you long ago. Only without me can you live a better life." She didn't love him anymore. How was that possible? Claire Sterling loved Ethan Rivers even in death, but that love couldn't be known to him. She was about to die. And Ethan shouldn't be held back by a dead person like her. He should have a better life, even if she wasn't in it. "So, Ethan, forget me. You must live well." The person in his arms grew cold, but Ethan refused to let go. He still held Claire tightly, like a drowning man clutching the last piece of driftwood. He suppressed his cries for her deep within his heart. Though he was screaming in his mind, in reality, not even a groan escaped his lips. A dense, sharp pain surged through his chest, turning his vision black. Even so, he saw a piece of white paper tucked under Claire's pillow. There was only one sentence on it. "The tears never clear, the brows gather sorrow. Tomorrow, don't go up the tower in longing, for the tower is full of wind and rain." There was also a thoughtful note left by Claire. "I'm gone. Stop thinking of me." His hand tightened on the paper. Ethan felt as if his right to breathe had been snatched away. He could feel nothing but the roar of his heartbeat in his ears. Faintly, he seemed to hear the nurse shouting. But he didn't want to respond. He only wanted to hold Claire. If he could, he wanted to go with her. He really wanted to ask her one thing. "Claire Sterling, how could I not think of you?" When Dee Archer arrived, Ethan had just put on his morning clothes and was standing by the bed. On the day Claire died, Ethan had a heart attack and almost followed her. Fortunately, he survived. "Ethan, I've chosen the cemetery. We can bury her after the cremation." Ethan nodded and silently walked out of the ward. Dee followed him as they headed to the crematorium. Before the furnace was lit, Ethan had one last chance to see Claire. He stood by the cooling bed. The woman lying there looked exactly as she had in life. It was as if the Claire who had been tortured by illness and begged for death had never existed. But it was different. Ethan thought to himself. Her face didn't have Claire's smile, nor that silent devotion she once had when looking at him. Claire was a liar. Her eyes had clearly written that she loved him, but when she was dying, she tried to lie and say she didn't. Ethan used every bit of his remaining logic to keep his hand at his side, resisting the urge to touch her. Caleb Brooks and Dee Archer stood aside, watching the silent man and the woman who could no longer speak, unsure of what to say. Caleb hadn't expected Claire to leave so soon, either. He thought he would eventually see the woman smile with relief one day. He thought that even if he couldn't be with Claire, he could at least see her live the life she wanted. But it turned out that in her life, he was nothing but a passerby. So many things throughout history are lost to the night. Don't worry, time will eventually smooth everything over. With that, Caleb didn't stay any longer. He turned and left. Dee looked at his back, then stepped forward and said raspy, "Ethan, it's time." Ethan's body trembled. He took one last deep look at Claire and closed his eyes. The roar of the furnace doors closing was deafening. At the same time, the sound of wailing came from somewhere else. The family next door lost a child. Parents burying their own, a staff member explained, signaling for Ethan and Dee to wait outside. Ethan walked out silently, his eyes dry. It turned out he couldn't even cry for Claire. "Ethan, are you okay?" Dee looked at him with deep concern. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." At least until he handled her final affairs, he wouldn't let anything happen to him. When Claire was alive, he hadn't been good to her. Now that she was dead, he would make sure her afterlife arrangements were perfect. This was the reason he wanted to keep living. The sound of footsteps came from behind. Ethan took the urn from the staff and headed silently toward the cemetery. A handful of yellow earth, a stone monument. That was how Claire Sterling's life ended. Ethan stood before the tombstone in silence, not saying a word. That one look lasted for a year. During that year, Dee tried countless times to persuade Ethan to have surgery, but she ran out of reasons. He was simply immovable. Eventually, Dee gave up and let him be. The summer rain was drizzling. Ethan stood by Claire's tombstone with an umbrella, his eyes full of unspeakable longing. During that year, he had handed everything over to Dee Archer and given the power of the river's family to Cillian. He had devoted himself entirely to ancient poetry to the world that belonged to Claire. In 1 year, he had learned many things, but he remembered one line above all. The butterfly follows the grace of the wind. When the person is gone, even the moon feels dull. Ethan whispered the line, and the dense pain in his heart submerged him. His face turned blue-white and his fingers grew stiff. He couldn't even hold the umbrella. Clutching his chest, he collapsed weakly by Claire's tombstone. Ethan's eyes were fixed on the monument, his pupils gradually dilating. In his final moments, he used the last of his strength to move closer to the stone. Like a child finding their way home, he leaned against it and closed his eyes, his heart at peace. "Claire, did you know that only when you were by my side did I ever feel joy?"